Hey guys, it's Zach back here with another episode of Clutch Crew Sports. Today I'm joined by Connor and Eric. Yes, I did say Eric. He's back here. uh, been a
Finally.
been a couple episode absence for him, but he's contributed his rankings for the past divisions that we've had, and I know he's been busy a lot, so it's good to have you back, man.
Thanks, man. Yeah, work has been destroying me lately. I mean, it's been a good thing, but at the same time, I've just been really tired and not had a lot of time to focus on sports. But I'm off right now and ready to go, ready to get back into the podcast. So I'm excited to be back.
Yeah, that's good for sure. And then today we're going to be talking about the AFC North, but next week Eric will definitely be on for that episode because that's going to be the AFC South. Eric and I are both Jaguar fans, so we're going to be having a little bit of a debate for the Jaguars segment because we have them finishing at different spots in the division. As I told you guys in the last one, Connor predicted our thoughts right for that, so
We'll talk
he'll
about
be
that
like
too.
the mediator.
It's like we're cousins and we know each other or something.
Yeah.
If you're watching this on YouTube, if when Zach has it on the Skype call, you'll see I've changed my logo to the Jaguars, so I'm ready for NFL. So
There it is.
yeah, yeah, Connor may have to keep Zach. Obviously we're long distance, but he may have to try to contain this debate next week or next episode.
All right, guys. But before we get talking about the AFC North, I do want to bring a point up here. We're big fantasy football fans, all three of us. Nathan also is a pretty big fantasy football fan. He's not here in this episode, but we all really enjoy fantasy football, and so we've decided to make a Clutch Crew Sports Fantasy League, and it's got all four of the podcasters that you've heard from the past: Eric, Connor, Nathan, and myself. And we're joined by six of our friends. Mainly, it's Eric and myself's friends in this group, but I do know one of Eric's friends here, Alan, in the group. So we are going to be drafting on August 31st, so next Saturday, and we are going to live stream the draft on YouTube. Don't know how many people will get watching our draft, but if you can watch it, it'll be pretty fun. And
Talking to you, my 51 subscribers.
Yes.
Turn out for that.
Yeah, that'll be a YouTube only thing. We're not gonna make that like a whole episode for podcast or anything, but it'll be like a YouTube video to watching us draft, and we'll all be
tune in.
Yeah, we'll all be debating, discussing, trash talking between ourselves for everybody that has Skype in the league. So stay tuned for that. Also coming out next week will be pretty fun. And at the end of this episode, Eric is going to draw for our divisions. We're going to have two divisions for this league, and on the screen right now is not going to be the actual divisions. It's just the default ones. But we're going to do a drawing for them live on air, and we're going to have two podcasters be in each division. So Eric, myself, Nathan, and Connor, between the four of us, two of us will be in each one, balance it out with everybody else in too. Should be pretty fun. And that's going to be something we're going to be bringing up all football season long, talking about this league, the matchups and everything. So I'm really looking forward to it. This is the most I've looked forward to the league that I've done with Eric, with his friends, since I joined it. So I'm excited. And with that being said, guys, let's get started with the AFC North, the rankings that we have. Connor and myself both have the same order. We both agree on this division that the Steelers will finish first, the Browns will finish second, Ravens will finish third, and Bengals will finish fourth. Eric's got the Steelers finishing first, the Ravens finishing second, Browns finishing third, and Bengals finishing fourth. And then Nathan has got the Browns finishing first, Steelers finishing second, Ravens finishing third, and Bengals finishing fourth. So a good, diverse group of answers here. The last couple ones we've all kind of agreed on. This one we have some order switch ups, but we all have the Bengals finishing last.
Sorry, Cincinnati fans.
Yeah, sorry. It's going to be a rough season we predict for you guys, but we're going to talk about the Bengals second in our lineup here. So, but let's start with the team. The offense is going to be completely different from what you've seen or what you would think of as an NFL offense. They said that Lamar Jackson's going to be, they've totally redone this offensive playbook catered around him, obviously because he's a very gifted running quarterback, very fast, very elusive. And really the Ravens in the past couple of years have been a run-based team, even if it wasn't the quarterback, because Flacco's not really. They've definitely utilized their running backs well, and they haven't really had elite wide receivers lately. And it's going to be really interesting, I think, to watch this team because I've got them finishing third, but they could finish first. They won the division last year, and I don't think it's crazy for them to finish first, but I do think they'll finish third. I think last year they did benefit a little bit from Lamar Jackson coming in and teams not expecting, his style of play, not really preparing for it. The reason I've got them finishing third is I think now that there's tape on him, there's pro tape on him, that teams are going not necessarily figure it out and completely stop it, but I feel like they're going to be better prepared to stop this team. And they've got some strengths, they've got some weaknesses offensively. I think their weaknesses are similar to last year's with their receiving core. I don't think is very great. They've got a lot of rookies in the back end of their depth chart here, with Marquise Brown being their first pick from last year. Sorry, guys, if you hear some loud noises. It just got louder. Right now there's people working on the roof of my apartment, so I can't control or do anything about it, but hopefully it's not too bad, and hopefully they keep it down a little bit. But and then this offensive line is they're a big, tall group of offensive linemen. These guys are pretty tall. Orlando Brown's huge. I think this offensive line's pretty good. Not the best offensive line, but definitely not the worst. Marshall Yanda, you keep expecting his production, his play level to decrease, but he's actually been pretty well for him recently, and why he's still on the team. But he's an older guy. They've got some younger guys too. I think it's a good offensive line. Their tight ends are. This is where I disagree with our lads on this, part of the Ravens one. I think Mark Andrews is going to be the starter, and then I think Hayden Hurst will be the backup, and then Nick Boyle. So I disagree with their tight end depth chart predictions here, but it's a good tandem of tight ends, don't get me wrong, and that's something that's going to be useful, to have blocking tight ends who can go out and catch, quick passes from Lamar Jackson. So they're going to be vital to this offense, more so, I think, than the receivers are going to be. Fantasy-wise, I wouldn't really trust many of these receivers to be taken in the high rounds, maybe later rounds. Pick a guy like Marquise Brown as a rookie who you don't know. He could be a star. Mark Ingram will be their starting running back, but they've got a group behind him that can carry the load for him when he's not playing. And then defensively, this team is very stout still. They lost a couple of pieces in the offseason, but they did gain Earl Thomas. The secondary is very good. 2 good corners, 2 good safeties. The linebackers are going to be different this year. No Terrell Suggs on the outside, but I still think Michael Pierce is one of the best nose tackles in the game, and he'll be a great run stopper. And So, I mean, I'm saying a lot of great things about the Ravens, but this division I think is going to be pretty tough to win with the other teams in it, and I think they'll finish third. They could finish first, though. They could definitely make the playoffs, but I'll give them, third is their floor, though. I don't see them finishing fourth at all. So I've got them, their floor maybe 6 wins if it goes really bad for them, and then their ceiling I think could be 10 or 11 and making the playoffs, maybe winning a playoff game, and then that'll be it for them. But curious for your guys' thoughts on the Ravens.
Well, the Ravens, for me, it's all going to be the offense is going to be what's going to be wrong with the team this year. Because, the defense, like you mentioned, is really stout. I mean, there are some question marks when it comes to the linebacking core. I mean, because Pernell McPhee is a decent edge rusher, but the loss of Terrell Suggs, and more so than Terrell Suggs, the loss of C.J. Mosley in the offseason, I think is going to hurt them a lot. We saw what happened when the Steelers lost Ryan Shazier. When you lose your middle linebacker, like your captain on the defense, it tends to not go too well. So, but I mean, I agree. The secondary is still fantastic, and the defense is going to be what's going to carry them. But on the offensive side, I like the Mark Ingram pickup. I mean, he's a good running back. He's a hard-nosed runner. He's going to get you the yards that you need. I just don't see where the offense is going to come from the rest of the team. I think there's enough tape on Lamar Jackson now that, I think we saw it last year in the playoff game against the Chargers where they game planned perfectly for him. I mean, Lamar Jackson couldn't go anywhere when they were playing against the Chargers. So, I mean, maybe against a weaker defense, that still won't matter. But I think there's enough tape and enough. The teams are well aware of what they're going to do now. And obviously, another issue with Lamar Jackson is the injury factor. He's a really small quarterback, and to play the style of quarterback that he does, he's going to be taking a lot of hits, and I'm not sure his body can hold up to that. He's not like, Cam Newton, who's 6'5" and 240 pounds, running the ball around. Lamar Jackson's a small guy. So, and the other problem for them is that if Lamar Jackson gets hurt, they've got Robert Griffin III as the backup, who is a man of glass, as we've all seen. He gets injured like every single year. I think he's injured right now, actually.
Yeah, I was going to say, somehow, even not playing, he's going to get injured.
So I think that's going to be an issue. And then obviously the receiving core, when your projected top 2 wide receivers are Willie Snead and Seth Roberts, that's not good. So, I mean, Willie Snead he's decent, but he's not built to be a number 1 wide receiver, which is where he's projected right now. So if Marquise Brown doesn't step up, then I have no idea who Lamar Jackson's going to throw to outside of, the tight ends. And Lamar Jackson's already not the greatest passer in the world anyway. So that's the reason why I have them finishing third, is mainly the offense. Like, the defense can only carry you so far. We saw that last year with Buffalo. I mean, Buffalo had the number 2 defense and the number 1 pass defense, but only finished like 6-10 because the offense couldn't get anything going. So, I mean, again, a floor, they're not going to fall below Cincinnati. So, maybe 6 wins or so. But I do agree with Zach that I wouldn't be surprised if they did win the division, just given how unpredictable the AFC North has been over the past, 10 years or so. I wouldn't be surprised at all if they won. I'd give them probably 10 wins as a ceiling. And I think they could win a playoff game just because of the experience that John Harbaugh has coaching in the playoffs. And that's one thing that Zach didn't mention, is they have a really good coach in John Harbaugh. There's a lot of Ravens fans out there that have been calling for them to fire John Harbaugh, but
that's silly.
It's really silly. I don't know why they'd want to do that. He's one of the top head coaches in the league right now. So
and they have probably the best special teams too in the league with Justin Tucker. And Harbaugh's got that background too, so his special teams is going to be good. They take that pretty seriously. So
since we've talked about kickers in the past, I mean, Justin Tucker is probably, him and Steven Gostkowski are probably the 2 best kickers in the league right now. So I mean, there's no one else I'd want to make that last second game winning field goal than Justin Tucker. So that's not going to be an issue for the Ravens. But yeah, I'll let Eric give his thoughts on Baltimore.
Yeah, and for those of you that listen to this, that comment about John Harbaugh, like, that came from a Steelers fan, folks. So that should let you know that
there's no bias.
He is a good. Yeah, he's not a. This is coming from a person that hates the Ravens that would probably love for John Harbaugh to get fired. So, anyway, yeah. So I was the one that had the Ravens finishing second, and the guys have brought up a lot of great points. I mean, I don't have too much to add to this, but for me, this division is really hard to predict. It's really weird because it's like between the Ravens, the Steelers, and the Browns, like on paper, all three of these teams are like very solid teams, but at the same time, they all have serious question marks that made it hard for me to predict like which team was going to win the division, because with the Ravens, like the guys are talking about, the main thing that's going to make them either be a potential division winner or a potential team to not even make the playoffs, it's all going to depend on how Lamar Jackson does in his second year. So either he's going to have to change his play style a little bit. Like, hopefully he did a lot of work in the offseason on getting better with his accuracy and pocket presence and things like that, because if they completely rely on his mobility, they're going to be screwed. I mean, there's been a history of this in the NFL where a mobile quarterback comes into the league and they do really well their first year, and everybody thinks like that guy's going to be the next Michael Vick or something. But then the next year, either they keep playing well, but then they get injured, or teams figure out how to stop them and they regress. Usually it's one or the other. So Lamar Jackson needs to prove that he has the ability to improve his game and not just completely rely on, running with him is, a lot, because teams are going to figure that out real quick. I mean, like Connor said, the Chargers, they shut him down pretty well in that playoff game last year. And if he keeps playing like that, then this could be a really bad year for the Ravens. But I, at the same time, still had the Ravens finishing second, because my question, as I said, I had question marks with the Steelers and the Browns. And my question for the Browns, which I know we're going to be covering them here in a little bit, but they have a lot of talent on paper, but is there going to be a lot of drama involving, Baker Mayfield and Odell Beckham? I mean, they have some hotheads, on that team. So if something, starts to go wrong, is it going to blow up and get crazy, or are they going to be able to overcome it and, showcase their talent? And then with the Steelers, the question I have, I mean, obviously they didn't have Le'Veon Bell last year, but, with no Le'Veon Bell and now no Antonio Brown, it's like, are they going to be able to, push through that and still prove that they can win the division? But I picked the Steelers to win the division because I ultimately feel like they're going to be able to overcome the lack of Le'Veon Bell and lack of Antonio Brown issue more than the Ravens are going to. I guess I trust the Steelers more in that situation than I trust the Ravens to get better with Lamar Jackson at quarterback. So I know we're going to kind of cover some more of these questions as we go on, but I wanted to give like my overall thoughts, because really that's my reasoning for why I don't have the Ravens winning the division. But this is going to be, I mean, this division overall is just going to be really interesting in general, because there's a lot of factors that are going to go into how these teams do.
Yeah, so really quickly here before we move on to the Bengals, are the Ravens a top 5 fantasy defense? In my opinion, they are. I think I would probably put them as the second or third best defense in fantasy. And my reasoning is not only do they have a good defense, but I feel like combined with the offense, this is going to be a really good team to pick for your fantasy leagues because the offense of Baltimore is very run heavy based, and that chews up clock, that makes the game go by quicker, and I just feel like they're going to have a lot of long drives on the offense, and it's not going to be like a team like the Chiefs where they can like score in one play. I think they're going to be a grinded out team. And then also defensively, they are really good in the red zone. They give up field goals, but they don't give up as many touchdowns. So kind of like the bend don't break philosophy, like that you've heard before. So I think they're for sure a top 5 defense. I'd say 2 or 3. You could put the debate there with Chicago being 1. So
yeah, I'd probably have to agree that they're a top 5 fantasy defense because although I don't think they're going to generate like the sacks and the takeaways that, I mean, Chicago obviously generates those, but some of the other teams, I don't think they're going to generate the sacks and the turnovers that other teams will, but they're so good at not giving up points, and that is a lot of the battle when it comes to fantasy defenses. Yeah. I mean, if you can get a fantasy defense that is going to get you 8 or 10 points alone just off of, not giving up points, that's already really good. And so if you throw in a sack or 2 here and maybe an interception, then you're going to get double-digit points all the time.
I've always said I'm happy with 10 points for defense. That's always been my belief. So
yeah, because I mean there's certainly times when defenses can get negative points. So they're the one position in fantasy that gets negative points the most often. So if you can get 10 points out of a defense, that's good. And yeah, up there with Chicago. And I know, Zach, you had a thing pulled up earlier on like the top fantasy defenses.
Yeah.
And there was one thing I want to mention when I was looking at that, if I was looking at it right. So I know we're not talking about the AFC East anymore, but I have no idea how they can't put the Buffalo Bills at least in the top 8. I don't know if you look at the top 10, who's below Cleveland, and yeah. So I have no idea how. Yeah. The
Eagles.
2, yeah, but the Buffalo Bills were the number 2 defense last year, number 1 against the pass, and you have them ranked 13th. I'm not sure how that works, but okay. I completely disagree with that. Yeah, no, I completely disagree with that. I have no idea why. I mean, same with the Eagles too. Both of those. Supposedly, I'm not going to try and hurt on them too bad, but this is supposedly the number 1 fantasy football podcast we're looking at here. And it says it right there in the top left.
Yep.
And they have Buffalo and Philadelphia outside the top 10. I'm not saying that they should be that they should both be top 5, but they should at least be top 10.
I agree. I'd move them up. I'd move New England and New Orleans and Seattle all down. I'd put those.
I'd move Cleveland a little bit down. I wouldn't put if you go up to I wouldn't put Minnesota in the top 5 yet, just because they were supposed to be like number 2 last year and they didn't perform. So I'm not sure you can quite like. I do agree they should be top 10, but just off of last year and how they completely underperformed, I don't trust them to be that good again this year. So. Yeah, little mini rant there.
They got my Jags at number 2, so I
know I like that.
List, but
I can't argue that the Steelers aren't a top 10 defense. So
see where they're
yeah, how far down are you Steelers?
7.
No, yeah.
I mean, in terms of points, yeah, we give up points, but we do get. I guess we got the most sacks in the league last year, but yeah, I do agree we're not top 10. So.
And I just want to see real quickly, the worst is Cincinnati Bengals.
No surprise.
I don't know if I'd put the Bengals last, but I'd probably put the Buccaneers last. But anyways, we can debate this another day, guys. Let's go on to the Bengals here.
I'm just going before you go on to the Bengals, I'm just going to say maybe I shouldn't say this because I might be giving away my fantasy football strategy, since we haven't drafted yet, but. I agree with both of your responses about the Ravens defenses, or the Ravens defense. Yeah, they have
Wow,
multiple.
two.
They have two defensive guys.
Wow, that's pretty good.
But I agree with your comments regarding their defense, but I'm not going to be drafting them because I just don't like to pick defenses really early, and I know like a lot of people do, and I usually either stream like a defense every week or I'll pick like two defenses like with like two of my last picks and then like rotate those two defenses or something. Like I don't splurge like an early round pick on, like a Chicago or Jacksonville.
You mean you're not going to be like Uncle Steve and take Jacksonville in like the 4th round?
Yeah, I know you're not.
I don't know he did it before, but yeah, he took them pretty high last year.
Yeah, you're not going to see me do that. I just most of the time, most years, whatever defense is projected to be like the top 1 and 2 defenses usually don't finish there anyway. So it's usually like a team that's projected a little farther down that ends up surprising. So for me, picking defenses is almost similar to picking a kicker in just the sense that it's kind of a crapshoot. And I don't know. So while I agree that the Ravens probably will be a top 5 fantasy football defense, I most likely will not be drafting them.
All right. Good to know.
Hopefully Zach and Connor didn't take too much notes on that.
Oh, I was writing everything down. And we're recording.
Zach's going to be Zach's continuing his scouting of me. Zach always scouts me every year. Like I don't even know how he knows, because sometimes I won't even be talking to him and he'll be like, Eric, I bet you are high on this guy, and then like I end up drafting him. I'm like, how did you know, man? Like, God. Are you a psychic or something? Like, I don't know, man.
No, I've kind of eased up on the scouting thing, and I've also shared some of my thoughts too in the last episode about Nicole Hardman. So I think
I'm the only one that hasn't shared my draft picks yet. I mean, they all know I got the first pick in our family league this year, so they all know like who I'm debating between. But
Yeah. All right. So moving on to the Bengals here, this is a pretty bad team. Like they're usually in each division. Usually in each division, there's that one team that is not going to win it. There's a couple exceptions to that, but the Bengals are the team for this division that we're not going to win it. They finally moved on from the Marvin Lewis era, so there's a chance they could win there's a chance they could win a playoff game now, but probably not this year. No, when you look at this team, I don't want to talk about it too much, but obviously we'll talk about Andy Dalton, but my thing with this team is that the problem I see with the Bengals is that their best players are older players. AJ Green's getting up there in years, and obviously he's injured right now. He's had injuries before, but he's their biggest name offensive player. And then defensively, Geno Atkins and Carlos Dunlap, they were drafted here 2010, so they're getting up there in age. So the big problem I see with this team is they don't have a great young core. They've got their best players are older players, and there's a couple exceptions to that, but that's just not a good situation to be in when you're a team. You want to have younger guys that are really good, and that's just the problem with this team. Is that I just don't think they have that much young talent, which means that they're probably not going to be competitive for a couple of years until they get, I think a new quarterback in Andy Dalton and
rebuild.
Yeah, for sure. They're not but I don't think they're rebuilding now, but they're in need of a rebuild, because I don't even think that this is groundwork for a rebuild, really. I think you got to get rid of AJ Green eventually and some of these older players to really start a rebuild. But they're definitely in that position, and it's unfortunate for them too. Jonah Williams, their first round pick, is not going to. I think he's going to miss the whole season with an injury. So, that's their offensive line's been pretty porous as well. And of course, Tyler Eifert, that guy's a walking injury.
Yeah, he's always hurt.
Yeah, so
He's killed me a few times.
Yeah, and I do want to give a shout out real quick here to Quentin Flowers. Honestly, I don't know why they changed his position to be a running back, because for those of you guys who don't know, he was the quarterback for USF, and he has all the USF passing records. Like he owns all of the offensive like passing yards in the game, total yards quarterback, but still, I always thought not like a star quarterback or anything. I didn't think he'd get to be a top pick, but I thought for sure that he would be like in a backup quarterback role or a backup quarterback battle. But they have him as a
Jeff Driscoll. I mean, my God.
But they've got him as a running back on their team. He's kind of like a position change sort of guy, but if I was running the Bengals, man, I would put him at quarterback and see what I've got, because I mean, I've got bias, but I still think he could be a good quarterback. But that name there kind of caught my eye there, so I wanted to bring him up because I know about him. But the Andy Dalton dilemma, he's under contract for this year and next year, and then he becomes an unrestricted free agent. I think everybody expects him to play out this year. They don't have any plans on changing that. But then for next year, if they do decide to release him before June 1st, there's no dead cap. So his guaranteed money has been paid out. So they have, they can move on from him after this year or trade him if they want. And the question that I have kind of for you guys is this Andy Dalton's last year, or do you think he's on the team next year? And then if he is on the team, do you think he plays?
Well, I mean, I don't think it's his last year. I think, I mean, you talk about the Bengals being in need of a rebuild. I do think that possibly this, next draft, they are going to be looking for a quarterback. I don't know if they're going to be the worst. I don't know if they're going to be competing for the first pick, but I do know Zach recently had sent a picture to our group chat of like the odds on each team winning the Super Bowl, and Cincinnati was tied for last in that discussion with Miami. They were both 200-1. So I don't know if they're going to be competing for a first pick, but I do think they're going to be looking for a quarterback. And if they don't get that high draft pick, then I think it's going to be necessary for them to keep Dalton, because, I mean, he's not going to light the world on fire, but he's serviceable. I think I've always kind of thought of Andy Dalton as like the measuring stick for quarterbacks in the league. Like if you're better than Andy Dalton, then you're good, and if you're worse than Andy Dalton, then you're pretty bad. So he's kind of like right there, just like the average. Yeah, he's like the middle of the road average quarterback of the league. So, yeah, I don't think it's his last year. I do think they're going to be looking for quarterbacks next season that, and I think he'll probably stick around as like a mentor type role. But I think he'll still be the starter, at least until his contract runs out.
Yeah, I agree, although I kind of feel like it probably should be his last season. I mean, honestly, like if I'm the Bengals, they've already had injuries on the offensive side. Like AJ Green's going to miss multiple games. Their first round draft pick on the offensive line's out for the season. Like, I mean, I know you're not supposed to like tank games or whatever, but this team needs to tank. I mean, they need to get the number 1 overall pick so they can get whoever's going to be the best college overall quarterback, and then to be ready to start right away, because even though Andy Dalton doesn't have any like guaranteed money, they could cut him and not lose anything by next year. But I'm sure they could find a team that needs a quarterback, and they could probably trade him and try to maybe at least get some draft picks out of it. And I agree with Zach too that, I mean, they like AJ Green, they should probably trade. Geno Atkins, they should probably trade. Like whoever they have that's like got like a really, high salary, that's like an older veteran that's not going to contribute towards a rebuild, like they should probably trade, because if they keep these guys and keep finishing like mediocre, middle of the pack, like, say maybe like the 7th to 12th worst teams, they're not getting that top pick. And so they might still get somebody good, but they need to get an elite quarterback and then start rebuilding around in the draft, and then start rebuilding around that. Because you see what happens with some of these teams. I know the Jaguars went through this for a long time, where every year, instead of finishing like 2-14 and getting the number 1 overall pick and being able to get like an Andrew Luck or something, we finish like 6-10 and get like the 8th to 10th pick and end up, getting somebody that, hasn't helped. Or we get like a Blaine we trade up and get a Blaine Gabbert or somebody that fails. And then we had to rebuild we've rebuilded for 10 years before we finally had a good year. Like, as much, like, to compare this to basketball, like, as much as I hate what happened with the Oklahoma City Thunder, like, I know they're going to suck next year. They're at least in...
Going to be having that taco with you, Eric.
Yeah. Once the NBA season starts, Connor and I are going to eat that taco and go for a walk in spirit and read a book. But if you don't know what I'm talking about, go back and you can find it in an old podcast episode. But at least I know that the Thunder in the future should be okay, because they have so many draft picks. When they traded away Paul George, they at least got a pretty young player from the Clippers and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Like, so they at least have. And if they can trade Chris Paul later in the future, whenever a team needs a point guard or something, like, then they'll get even more picks. Like, they at least have a future with all these picks. Whereas if you do like what Connor's Hornets are doing, and they have all these older, expensive guys that they're not going to win games with, they don't have, anywhere near the draft pick capital that the Thunder have, they're screwed long term. And that's what happens to these teams when they refuse to rebuild when the signs are there that they need to rebuild. So if Cincinnati, wants to turn this around, they already went and got a new coach, which I think is good, because they've been needed to do that.
Yeah.
But, they do have it. They have, if Jonah Williams can come back healthy, I think Tyler Boyd's a good young receiver. Joe Mixon's a good young running back. They've got a few pieces that they can start with, and then try to rebuild and get some more draft picks and get some younger talent in there, and start it now. Just to face it now that you're going to suck, and try to fix it for the future. Like, I don't know, like, Bengals are they're a neutral team for me, but I don't know, after I was doing a playoff pool with our family one time, and Zach's dad said he was picking the Bengals in a playoff game. I said that funny thing, where I'm like, man, I really want the Bengals to win a playoff game now. Like, and I don't even know if your dad remembers that, if he listens to this, but we were on one of our family retreats, and we're like, I think it was the Bengals. I don't even remember who they were playing, but maybe the Chargers or something.
Probably the Texans. I think it was the Bengals and
maybe
Texans.
The Texans. Yeah. We were like, who you got? And Uncle Steve was like, give me the Bengals. So I'm like, ever since then, like, and that's Susan's like first memory of him. So like, I've low key like kind of been, sort of not like secretly rooting for him, but like if they're like in a playoff game against another neutral team, I'm like, come on, Bengals, you can do this, and then they never do.
Because that's if we ever mention Uncle Steve to Susan, we just got to mention Bengals, and she'll know who we're talking about.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So like, who are you talking about? Bengals. Oh, it's Uncle Steve. Okay. But I know I guess this is kind of like my rant for the episode. I didn't really have like a rant topic planned, but but I would like to see the Bengals be able to turn it around, but they have to admit that they don't have a good team, and I mean they're already losing some of the good players that they do have to injury. Like they need to blow this thing up like ASAP. So, but I guess to fully answer Zach's question, now that I'm finally getting back around to that, I've been going around in circles a lot here. I do apologize, but I do think Andy Dalton is going to be on the team next year, maybe like in a mentor role, like Connor said. But I don't know if they should do that. I think they need to see if there's any way they can get like, you know, a couple of draft picks for him or something. Like I would trade him. That's what I would do. But maybe if I'm not getting any offers, then maybe I keep him. But otherwise, like if I can get some draft picks for him, like, you know, goodbye Andy. Like
would you play Quentin Flowers over him this year? Change Quentin Flowers back to a quarterback and play him?
Not over Andy Dalton, but I mean Jeff Driscoll, like he's not good. Like I mean why they wouldn't even give Quentin Flowers a shot to see like what he could do, like to see if maybe he could be the backup or something. Like, I mean, I didn't know who he was until Zach mentioned this, so I haven't seen him play or anything. But what I do know is that Jeff Driscoll is not good. So why you wouldn't give him at least a shot? Maybe they did and he didn't work out. I don't know, but then you've also got him sitting there at fifth string running back, so he's not doing any good there either. Yeah. But I don't know. But anyway, I will transfer the mic now.
No, that was interesting. Eric, you know, he's always, you know, pro, you know, blowing it up and rebuilding. I think from my experiences with him and video games and you know, debating sports and stuff.
Oh yeah, man, we started a 2K franchise where we took, you know, two of the worst teams. So Zach had the Knicks and I took the Cavs, and the very first thing I did was I traded Kevin Love. So
well, you say, Eric, those are the two worst teams, but there's some, you know, some people might put them in playing against each other in the championship game.
Oh God. I wasn't gonna mention that, but yeah.
You know, forget the fact that they're both Eastern Conference teams. You know.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Maybe I should make some bet. Maybe I should make some kind of bet where, like, if the Cavaliers and Knicks meet in the Eastern Conference Finals, that I have to like put something crazy as my Twitter avatar or something, or I have to come on a podcast and admit something crazy or something. I don't know. Like I might.
If that happens,
I would feel pretty secure about this.
If that happens, I we've all lost our sense of reality and stuff.
Yeah, if I make it to the conference finals, we're all terrible podcasters. So
apparently RJ Barrett was better than Zion Williamson.
All right, guys. So now going on to the Browns. This is the team that Connor and I have them finishing second. Eric's got them finishing third. Nathan's got them finishing first. So obviously the Browns, you could, you know, say is the team that had the best offseason by adding, you know, stars and stuff. But the thing with the Browns is going to be are all these stars, you know, that was the question I have for the Browns here. Will the drama outweigh the talent? And you're looking at the two biggest pictures of the drama right here on YouTube, Odell Beckham and Baker Mayfield, because, you know, obviously we all know Odell's had his moments in New York, and Baker, while I think he handled himself okay last year playing for the Browns, in college he had, you know, quite a few incidents with other schools where he had some questionable behavior. And they have a first-year head coach, Freddie Kitchens. You know, it's his first time being a head coach. He was the offensive coordinator, interim head coach last year. And is he going to be able to handle all of these personalities on this team? Because this team is littered with, you know, people like that. And then another piece of the puzzle too, Jarvis Landry, who's like Odell Beckham's like brother from LSU. He's his teammate, but the thing with Jarvis Landry is he's a high volume catch guy. You know, he doesn't have very big yards per catch, but he catches. You know, he's always at the top of the league in catches. He'll get a lot of catches for short yardage, but he'll just catch the ball a lot. And is that going to anger Odell Beckham Jr., even though they're like best friends or whatever? You know, Odell's a guy that, you know, needs the ball in his hand. Eli felt practically forced to throw it to him all the time in New York. And obviously the talent is there. That's a pretty talented duo of receivers. And then the whole thing with the running backs, Kareem Hunt, with his off the field issues bringing into the team, you know, that when he comes back, that's going to be like a potential distraction from after his suspension is up. And then how are they going to deal with, you know, shuffling him and Nick Chubb out in the lineups? And then defensively, one of their draft picks, Greedy Williams, another LSU guy, you know, as soon as he got drafted, he said the Browns are winning the Super Bowl and that he's like the best cornerback in the league or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was something kind of crazy like that, where it was like, considering you just got drafted and are a rookie who's never played before, these are some pretty bold statements. You know, it's one thing to be optimistic and, you know, and stuff like that, but it's another thing to be kind of, you know, reckless with his predictions to giving other teams motivation. And, you know, you can, you know, another Jaguars example, Jalen Ramsey from last year with his, you know, when he came out saying all these quarterbacks were trash and everything, you know, it wasn't the smartest idea to do. It brought drama, it brought distractions to the team, and they're never good. Even though you have the talent, you know, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to win all these games. And so that I do think that the drama is going to outweigh the talent here, because I've still got them finishing second. They're still going to win games based on their talent. But if things start going wrong, you know, they might lose a couple games because of the drama, and you can't afford to do that in this league. Every game is valuable. And while I certainly think they got better, this isn't the Browns team that went 0-16 at all. But, you know, they have their quarterback. They have pretty good defensive pieces, Myles Garrett, Olivier Vernon from the trade. Denzel Ward was really good last year. You know, they have a good team here, but I'm just not sure that there's a head coach that is going to, you know, if they had a proven head coach that's dealt with situations like this before, I might feel okay about it. But just from the stuff that's happened in training camp and the preseason and stuff with Odell being there sometimes, not being there other times, I just don't think this team is cohesive and really a team yet. So for that reason, I've got them finishing second.
Yeah, well, Cleveland. I mean, there is a chance that they could just turn back into the Cleveland Browns. I mean, you know, it's one of those things that I wouldn't be surprised if this team won the division and then won a couple playoff games, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they just completely crashed and burned. I mean, again, they are the Cleveland Browns, but just the drama is too much to handle, I think. You know, unless they had, like, I think Zach made a good point about the head coach. I mean, Freddie Kitchens has been trying to take charge. I saw something about where, like, he made the whole team run, like, I can't remember what they were called. They were like suicides or something like that at training camp, because there was like a brawl between two guys in camp or whatever. So he's been trying to take charge, but I don't know if he can control the egos of Odell, Baker. I mean, Baker's already been outspoken in training camp. There's already been issues with that. Like, he was calling people out for stuff, and they were, you know, some of his teammates were getting upset. Like, okay, you're not the guy yet. You know, it's not like you're Ben Roethlisberger or Phillip Rivers or Drew Brees. Like, you're the established leader on this team. Like, you're not there yet. You've only been here for a season. You're not the guy. So calm down. And so if you got the defense for me, I'm going to get back to the offense in a little second. But the defense for me, the defensive line is really good. I mean, Sheldon Richardson and Myles Garrett and Olivier Vernon are really good. So that's a strong suit. The linebackers are a bit of a question mark. I mean, I don't think I've heard of any of these guys. I think I've heard of Christian Kirksey.
I've heard of him.
But bit of an issue there. And then the secondary is good. Denzel Ward. I can safely say that Morgan Burnett was not a good idea. Judging by how he was in Pittsburgh last year, we brought him in to be the starting free safety, and he was like immediately injured. And then the couple games he did play, he sucked. So we just went back to Terrell Edmonds. So, not sure about that move, but I mean, Terrence Mitchell's decent, Demarius Randall. So this defense can take them places. But back to the offense, I know you mentioned the whole Kareem Hunt thing. I mean, he's got that 8-game suspension. I did confirm it was 8. I thought it was 10, but it's 8.
Yeah.
But
I think I think it originally was 10, and then he appealed it and got 2 games taken off.
Yeah.
I want to say so.
And so. But yeah, how are they going to split time with Nick Chubb? Because Nick Chubb, he can be a running back by committee. I mean, we saw it last year. Him and I can't remember who was it that they had last year.
It was Carlos Hyde.
Yeah, that's right. Him and Hyde, and then like Duke Johnson also.
Yeah.
I think getting rid of Duke Johnson was good because otherwise we'd be talking about more drama on the team because Duke Johnson was stirring up problems. So at least they got rid of one small drama problem. But yeah, with Kareem Hunt he's meant to be an every down back. I mean, we saw him in Kansas City. He was a beast. I mean, I still am really salty towards him for ruining my fantasy season last year because he punched his girlfriend in the face or whatever and then got immediately kicked off the team or immediately suspended or whatever. And, there went my best running back. So thanks, Kareem. I don't see an apology from him either. Le'Veon Bell apologized, but Kareem Hunt has not apologized.
I think he apologized for his action, but I don't think he apologized. He didn't apologize for the fantasy.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, I mean, and then the offensive line's a bit of a question mark for me. Like Greg Robinson's a decent tackle, but I mean, I watched Chris Hubbard in Pittsburgh, and he was not very good. And then I haven't even heard of the guards and center, so I'm not sure how good this offensive line is. I mean, I know David Njoku is pretty good at tight end, but I don't know how many holes they're going to be able to open up for. I mean, Chubb and Hunt are both, they can run downhill, especially Hunt. He'll get you yards if you need it, but can they protect Baker Mayfield? And finally, on to the wide receiver issue. If you guys remember in the last podcast, because I made my bold prediction on the Jets with the kicker, Zach asked me to make a bold prediction for this episode. And if you guys remember, I said that by the end of the year, one of the two between Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry will not be in Cleveland by the end of the year. That is my prediction because, like Zach said, Jarvis Landry is probably going to be getting a lot of balls thrown his way. And, I mean, we saw how Antonio Brown complained about that last year when Juju was getting all the balls thrown to him. And Odell is basically the same way. He's going to start stirring up trouble. Then it's going to, cause trouble with Baker Mayfield. And I think it would be in their best interest to, even though it's like they are star receiving core. I mean, there's 2 guys that you would want on any team if it wasn't for the drama. If you just took their skill sets, then yeah, no question you'd want these 2 guys. But with the drama, I would think it'd be in their best interest to try and trade one of them and get something for it, because I don't think the personalities are going to clash well. And if they do stick around, like if they don't try and trade them, one of them's going to end up getting released or signed by another team or traded or something before the end of the year, because it's not going to work. So that's why I have them finishing second. But like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if they won the division. I wouldn't be surprised if they crashed and burned too. I don't think they're going to be worse than Cincinnati, but I could definitely see them finishing in that third place realm of the division. And I do think I'm with Zach also. I do think the drama is going to outweigh the talent, if you couldn't tell by what I was just saying.
Yeah, and if you also couldn't tell, since I'm the one that has the Browns finishing the lowest in the division, I also feel the same way. It kind of reminds me if they're able to put it together and stay drama free, then I think this team wins the division. But as I mentioned earlier, I trust the Steelers to get over the potential issues they have more than I trust the Browns to get over this potential issue, the drama. It kind of reminds me, can't remember which season it was. I want to say it was like maybe 2010 or 2012. I could be off on this, but it was that year when the Eagles got like a whole bunch of talent in the off season, and everybody was like calling it. They're like, Eagles to the Super Bowl, Eagles to the Super Bowl, and they did so bad that year. I wish
Well, wasn't it like Michael Vick's like second year or something there? I think I know what you're talking about because it was they were coming off Michael Vick's first year there, and he played like super well. And then
they brought in like Sproles and they had D-Jax and some other big names too. I want to say like the running back with Ryan Matthews. I want to say was there.
Well, LeSean McCoy was there.
Yeah, Shady was there. Yeah. So.
Yeah, so I don't remember the year it was, but I'm trying to find it right now as I'm kind of talking about it. But okay, so yeah, it was 2000. It was 2011. So I remember one of the players they got was Nnamdi Asomugha from.
Oh yeah.
He was supposed to be like the best corner in the league, and he got this like really ridiculous. Contract. It's not showing like who all, this particular website I'm on right now. It's not showing everybody else that they signed that year, but they brought in a bunch of players, and everybody just assumed, oh, they got this Pro Bowler and they got this high draft pick and they got this guy and they're gonna win the Super Bowl. And I feel like a lot of people are doing the same thing with the Browns when they got Odell Beckham and Olivier Vernon, and I think they're just assuming that because of the talent that they're going to, be a great team. And I mean, and they're another team like the Bengals that I've like a team that like, if they were to win, like I'd be okay with it. Cause like I actually do, even though I grew up in Jacksonville, I actually do know a couple of Cleveland Browns fans. And as a fan of, it's crazy. Yeah. This, one of the students I had at the school that I worked at, his granddad who brought him and picked him up every day. He's from Cleveland, so he's like fan of all Cleveland sports. So he's the main one I know. He probably doesn't even know this podcast exists, but Mr. Darrell, if you're listening to this, shout out to you, because this could be the year that maybe the Browns turn it around. But another reason why I've always just kind of secretly pulled for him is just because they had so many seasons where they've been so bad, and obviously as a Jaguars fan, I've gone through the same thing. So like, they're a team that like I would like to see them, be good. Like if my Jags aren't doing good, I'd be totally fine if the Browns were. But I do have the same concerns that you guys have about the drama, and I just don't know. But like I said, I think if they can avoid the drama issues and everybody stay cool with each other, and if they can somehow like form a good chemistry, then I think they win the division. But I just don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah. This is one of those things that this division is so unpredictable between these top three teams, but like we all said, like we think the Bengals are going to finish last. That's like that's a foregone conclusion. But now we're going to get into the part of the show. It's going to be Connor's favorite part of probably all these podcast episodes that we've had up to this point. But we are, going on to the Steelers, which is his favorite team. And I've prepared about 7 questions here to ask him, and I'll get his answer and his reply to them. And then after that, if he wants to touch up on anything, he'll, have the platform to do that. And Eric and I agree with Eric on the reasoning why I think that the Steelers will finish first is that, I think they got rid of their issues, whereas I think Cleveland's bringing in issues, and they're still a solid team, even after losing those 2 guys, and they never really could win playoff games with them anyway. So I don't really see it as that big of a loss when it never really worked out to begin with. But here's the first question for Connor.
I've not been prepped on these, by the way, so this is all improv.
This is going to be impromptu. He knows this question, but the other 6 he doesn't know. So I'll put it on the slideshow thing here so we can go through. But So who wins the backup quarterback job between Josh Dobbs and Mason Rudolph? And then will they keep 3 quarterbacks, or is the loser of this battle going to be on the practice squad?
Yeah, so I think as of right now, I think Josh Dobbs is probably still going to be the backup quarterback. I mean, I know the latest preseason game we had, Dobbs didn't play great, and Mason Rudolph actually did pretty decent. So there were some of these articles coming out talking about, oh, well, maybe Mason Rudolph has moved ahead of Dobbs on the list now. But I don't see that as reality because, well, one, Dobbs is a bit more experienced. He's got more preseason experience, which I know doesn't count for much, but it's still experience. And also because Dobbs actually has in-game experience. I can't remember what game it was, but this past season, the Steelers, like Roethlisberger went down with, it was a very minor injury. Like he came back a series later, or, a couple downs later. But Dobbs basically had to come in and run the offense for like 3 downs. And they got to a crucial 3rd down where it was like, they need to convert this. Because I think the Steelers, I don't know if we were losing, but it was a really close game. And it was like, they need this 3rd down. And Dobbs made a crucial pass and converted the 3rd down. So, and he came in and he handled the pressure and got it done. So I think that's where Dobbs gets elevated over Rudolph, just the in-game experience, whereas Rudolph has yet to see the field in a regular season game. So, yeah, I think Dobbs is going to win the backup job. I do think they're going to keep all 3 quarterbacks because there's also a 4th-string quarterback that the Steelers have right now that is, trying out. And I know Roethlisberger's advocating for him a lot, but I don't see any way that he stays on the roster. I think they're going to dump him into the practice squad. And I do think they're going to keep both of them, though, because if there is a situation where Roethlisberger goes down, I think it's good to have options, and pretty well every team in the league keeps 3 quarterbacks these days, except for New England. I think New England's really the only team that consistently only keeps 2. So I think it's going to be good for them to keep Dobbs and Rudolph, and I think Dobbs will win the backup job.
All right. Well, Eric and I will both like the answer to that because Dobbs is a Tennessee guy, so we're always rooting for him. So I hope he gets his chance eventually. All right, and then the next question here is a question that I kind of saw it on Twitter where somebody posted the worst. What team is the worst at each position group? So they go through all the position groups, and the question, and for the safeties, the person said that the Steelers had the worst safeties. I don't know why it doesn't say that on here, but that's what the question is.
You might want to go out of the PowerPoint really quickly. Maybe it says it on the slide.
No, because I just copied and pasted these slides, so I just forgot to edit the text. But okay. That's the question. Just ignore the text, but the picture's there. I was a little bit surprised by that as being the worst, but I want to hear your thoughts on that and if you believe that or not.
If I believe that our safeties are our biggest weakness.
Well, no, it's not the biggest weak. Do you think that they have the worst safeties in the NFL? Because that's what they. Yeah.
No,
okay.
I don't agree that we have the worst safeties in the NFL. I mean, I'm pretty sure I probably can't name them, but I'm sure the safeties on like Tampa Bay and Miami and stuff are probably worse. I mean, I'm not saying they're definitely probably lower tier. I won't argue that. I mean, Sean Davis there's been question marks around him as to whether he's going to keep his job or not, but it's one of those things that we don't really have anybody else to be in that position. So we kind of just have to roll with him. And I mean, Terrell Edmonds is still developing, so Sean Davis is developing too. They're both young players. I mean, I think Davis was drafted a couple seasons before Edmonds. So, but obviously Edmonds is only in his 2nd year, and he didn't even expect to start last year. Going back to when I was talking about Morgan Burnett, we had brought in Morgan Burnett to fill that role or to be the starting strong safety, not free safety, strong safety, because they moved Davis over to free safety. But we brought him in to be the starter, and he was immediately hurt. So Edmonds basically ended up starting every game. And, they talk about with the Steelers, the secondary is always the weakness. And yeah, I think the safeties they're lower tier, but they're definitely not the worst in the league.
Okay. Yeah. Because I had there were a couple other things on that position group that I didn't agree with. So I figured that wouldn't agree with this one either. And then the next one here is, did the Steelers upset New England in Week 1? What do you think?
Well, it's something that I would certainly like to see. I mean, we played New England in the opener a few seasons ago, and I remember that was the game we were without Le'Veon Bell and D'Angelo Williams started. And that was actually a really competitive game, and I remember being a little upset because it was so close and New England pulled it out. But, I mean, if there's any time that we're going to beat them, now is the time. I mean, I know it's going to be tough because it's going to be in Gillette, but obviously the Patriots are notoriously slow starters. I mean, they were 1-2 to start the year last year. You know, they won their first game, but then they lost to Jacksonville, and then actually I think they won their third game, but then they lost the fourth one. So if there's any time, it's going to be hard again because it's at Gillette, and since it's the opening night, the Patriots are going to be having their ceremony where they're like unveiling their Super Bowl banner and blah blah blah, all this stuff. So everybody's going to be hyped about that, but. There's a chance. I'm not going to lock it that it's going to happen, and I'm not going to say it's not going to happen, but I'd give it maybe, like, on a confidence scale, I'd be, like, 45% confident that we're going to do it. I'm not sure because we're going to be, obviously, the offense is going to be different, and obviously being at Gillette for that first game is going to be tough. So I'm not – I will give the Patriots still a slight edge, but I definitely think it can happen.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to the next one here. Do you think Ben Roethlisberger is going to be in MVP discussion? And if he is, do you think he has a realistic shot of being the MVP?
I don't think so this year. I mean, last year, it's too bad because he could have been in the discussion had he cut down on his interceptions. I mean, I know early in the year, I mean, obviously nobody expected Patrick Mahomes to do what he did, but he would have been in the discussion last year had he not thrown so many interceptions with that 5,000-yard season. So, but I don't think so this year. I think the pieces I think the offense is going to be more of, I think he's going to be passing the ball less this year because he passed the ball so much last year. I think Steelers were like number 1 in the league for running empty sets last year. So, and I think our rushing offense was like 31st last year. So I think that's going to change because we have the committee now with James Conner and Jalen Samuels if they're both healthy. You know, because Conner, he can't be an every down back. He proved that last year. But with Samuels, I think that's a deadly duo. So Roethlisberger's not going to have to throw the ball much, and he's not going to be as directly tied to the success. Because last year it was pretty much all him, the reason why we got as far as we did. Whereas this year, I don't think that's going to be the case. So I don't think Ben will be in the MVP discussion. I think he'll still put up really good numbers, but not the kind of numbers that's going to get you into that MVP discussion.
Okay. It's Mike Tomlin on the hot seat.
As much as all the fans want him to go, I highly doubt it. I don't think so because, I mean, we have not had a losing season under him since he's come to Pittsburgh. And I know Pittsburgh, it's an organization of stability. I mean, ever since 1969, when we hired Chuck Noll, the Steelers have had 3 head coaches in that whole time span. It was Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, and now Tomlin. So, I mean, unless for some reason the Steelers start just absolutely tanking for, unforeseen reasons, Tomlin is definitely not on the hot seat in the eyes of the organization. In the eyes of the fans, I know a lot of the fans think he's on the hot seat and think he should go, but in the eyes of the organization, he's not at all on the hot seat.
Yeah, because just with the way AD kind of treat, how he got away with all this stuff. My thing with Tomlin is I think he's a good coach, but I feel like he doesn't hold his players accountable as much as other coaches do. Is my critique of him.
Yeah, well, I completely disagree with all the fans that are calling for his head. I mean, it's one of those things that who else would you want? I mean, who else are you going to get? And there's this guy here who has not had a losing season in the whole time he's been here. So I don't see the logic in all in firing him, despite all the fans wanting them to.
Yeah. All right. So you talked about the backup running back things with the running back situation. Do you think Benny Snell could be a fantasy sleeper behind Connor, and then Samuels is going to be in the mix. But Benny Snell is a guy from Kentucky who I want to say was the SEC Offensive Player of the Year last year, or if he wasn't, he was the year before. A 4-year guy at Kentucky. I'm sure he holds all their records and stuff. He was dominant at Kentucky. He was a mid-round draft pick this year as a rookie, but I know that rookie running backs get a lot of attention. No matter where you're drafted, you're going to get a chance to play. So, what do you think his fantasy production is going to be like?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I think Jalen Samuels is probably more like, I don't know if Samuels is as much of a sleeper, but like I think Samuels is one of those guys that you could, maybe pick up in a really late round as kind of like a backup running back that could turn out to, do really well. I don't think so as much with Benny Snell. I mean, I know they like him, but given the fact that it's kind of established now that it's going to be a tandem with Connor and Samuels, I don't think Benny Snell is going to see the field a whole lot, barring an injury to James Conner or Jalen Samuels. So I don't think he's going to be I don't think he's going to be a viable option in fantasy. Not even worth. I think Jalen Samuels is more that really late round draft pick that you'd want to get rather than Snell.
Okay. And then the defense, like Connor said earlier in the episode, had 52 sacks last year and tied for first place in the NFL with sacks. Do you think that they can continue that have 52 sacks or lead the league? Do you think that's going to happen, or do you think that production is going to drop?
No, I think absolutely they could lead the league in sacks again. I mean, the whole sack party is coming back, basically. I mean, we have all the same pieces, Stephon Tuitt and Cameron Hayward on the line. TJ Watt's obviously a perennial Pro Bowler. I mean, it kind of got snubbed last year. I don't know why he didn't get in the Pro Bowl last year. I think, maybe he did because he was an alternate, but like when the first ballot came out, he wasn't on it. Yeah. I was like, how can you not include TJ Watt on that? But Dupree's kind of coming into his own. It was good for him that they switched him to the other side because he was originally playing on TJ Watt's side. But when they brought in Watt, it was like, okay, give him what he wants because he's supposed to be the guy. And Dupree's actually done a lot better on the other side. I mean, if TJ Watt's drawing double teams, then it's open for Dupree to get to the quarterback. And so, yeah, I think for sure they could, still lead the league in sacks. And who knows, maybe Devin Bush can also rush effectively. He's going to be more so for, stopping the run and everything. But I do think they can do it again. I don't see any other defenses aside from maybe, there's like Jacksonville and Denver that'll have, big sack machines on their team. But I think the Steelers could definitely do it again.
Okay. And I guess that was the last one. So, yeah, so I didn't know how long these questions were going to be, how long they were going to take, but they covered different parts of the team, different things that I'd heard about the Steelers, but I'll let you I'll pull up the Hour Lads here if you want to use that, but I'll let you kind of give your closing thoughts on your team for this year.
Yeah, well, it's mainly going to be offensively because we talked about the defense, but on the offense, I think, first of all, I've got to mention that I know this offensive line, this is going to be, good for, obviously, Connor and Samuels, that this offensive line is one of, if not the best in the league. I mean, Pouncey and DeCastro have been Pro Bowlers multiple times. Villanueva has been a Pro Bowler, and Foster both been Pro Bowlers. Foster kind of brings like that veteran mentality to the offensive line, and if nothing else, Villanueva is huge. I mean, the guy's like 6'9", 300 pounds. So, and then we do have a new right tackle this year in Filer, but Filer's been on the team. He's been on the line before. I was pretty happy we got rid of Marcus Gilbert just because he's been so injury prone the last couple of years and hadn't really played at all. So. But yeah, this offensive line is top notch. So it's going to be good for Connor, and obviously it's going to help Ben have time to throw. But then the biggest question that you didn't ask me, that I think a lot of people are wondering, is the wide receiver question. Can Juju be the number one receiver now? And honestly, I think he can. I mean, he obviously got the majority of the balls last year because Brown was drawing double teams. but I think he has the skill set to be a number one wide receiver. I mean, he's still growing as a player. I mean, this is only his third season in the league. He's only 22 years old or whatever. So I think he can. And also, the Steelers have decent pieces around him. I like the pickup of Moncrief. I know he didn't do too good in Jacksonville last year, but I remember watching him when he was opposite T.Y. Hilton in Indianapolis, and he did a really good job there. I've heard a lot of good things about Deontay Johnson. One thing I do think that's going to change on this depth chart is I don't think James Washington's going to be the number 3 wide receiver, so to speak. I think he's probably going to be gone by the end of the year because they drafted him last year to be that third guy to Juju and Antonio Brown, and he just didn't perform at all. I mean, he even got benched one game because they wanted him to sit on the bench and maybe reevaluate or use that as motivation, and he still came back and was flat. So I don't think James Washington's going to be that high on the depth chart. I think Deontay Johnson's going to move ahead of him because I've been hearing a lot of good things about him, and yeah, I think Juju can do it. It's going to be tough for him, but I think the Steelers with Ryan Switzer and Moncrief and Johnson around him, I think Juju can make it happen. But if I had to come to my whole final conclusion on the Steelers this year, I mean, I don't think, as much as I hate to say it, I don't think this is a Super Bowl contending team yet. I mean, maybe, obviously Roethlisberger doesn't have too many years left in him, so it needs to happen sooner rather than later, because once he's gone, they're not going to be in contention for sure anymore. So I think this year is going to be a good stepping stone. I do still think they'll win the division, but I think there are teams in the AFC right now, namely like Kansas City and New England, and possibly, if Andrew Luck is fully healthy again, Indianapolis, that I think are better than the Steelers right now. So I don't think they're a Super Bowl contending team just yet. Maybe next year they will have all the pieces together, since everything has been flipped on its head this year with the absence of Brown and Bell. So I would probably give them, I think they could possibly make it to the AFC Championship game, but then I think they'll probably lose that to either Kansas City or New England or one of those other teams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. I know Moncrief was really frustrating last year for Jacksonville. So I guess he's been, like, you've heard good things about him with the Steelers, or?
Yeah, I mean, he's not going to light the world on fire again, but he's just going to be a good opposite to him. I mean, there's going to be a lot of rotation there as to the second guy is going to be. I don't think there's a defined second receiver yet, but there's, the receivers, the interchangeable ones that can step up. It's kind of like in basketball with, like, the Toronto Raptors we were talking about way back when. Kawhi Leonard was the guy, but every game it seemed to be like a different second guy that would step up. I think that's going to be the same way. Like, Juju's the guy, but every game there's probably going to be a different second receiver that between Moncrief, Johnson, and Switzer that really steps up. Yeah,
and another thing that was really shocking, there's two things that when you answered all these questions that I was kind of surprised to hear about was, one, James Washington here about, he was only a rookie last year and this is his second year, but the fact that, he's already going way down the depth chart's not good. And I was kind of surprised about that because I thought he was going to end up being a top guy for him, especially with Antonio Brown leaving. And then the second thing was earlier when we talked about Dobbs and Rudolph. I don't know. I feel like most teams are starting to go away from 3 quarterbacks, and I think they're trending towards 2 quarterbacks now. I mean, I know the Jaguars have done that. I feel like some other teams have 2, and then they have, like, their young guy on the practice squad for them. But I know every team's different. But I guess if they do keep 3 quarterbacks, that takes up a position somewhere else, which teams might not like. But if that third guy they feel like is too valuable to leave on the practice squad, which in this case I do agree with you. I think between all 3 of these guys, I think it's they're all valuable enough to keep on the main roster, safe from other teams potentially picking them up. And then I didn't research or know anything about Devlin Hodges, but brought him up.
Somewhat, Roethlisberger's advocating for him, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah. So Eric, you got any thoughts on this Q&A with Connor here?
I mean, I don't really have anything else to add. I mean, I thought Connor gave a lot of great, answers, and if you're listening to this as a Steelers fan, hopefully you feel more knowledgeable about your team, or if you're listening to this as a fan of one of the rivals, you have some more information to look out for. However you feel about that, but I mean, as I've stated earlier, I mean, I feel the Steelers are going to win the division. I mean, as a person who doesn't like the Steelers, I would be fine if it doesn't happen. but I just think logically that I think they have the best team. They have a good track record. I feel most confidently to say that they will be the best team in the division. Although, as I said, this is just a crazy division in terms of the fact with the top three teams. It's just so hard to predict where any of the top three teams could finish. I mean, it could definitely, this is a perfect example of it could go any specific way, but I still think the Steelers are the best team, though, and in this division. So that's why I've got them finishing first.
Yeah, I want to say for the AFC, before we go on to current events, we've been doing the episodes, I think, in chronologically getting to be more entertaining and more, open up in the air, because the East is, the first place one is set. You can debate the other ones, but we know the first place. And then the West, between the Chargers and Chiefs, that was a battle. We all ended up taking the Chiefs. And then this one, there were three teams that, between all of us, that you could say have an argument. And then when we get to the South, sorry, one second. When we get to the South, I think any four of those teams could win. So it's really, getting better and better as we go along.
Well, and like you mentioned at the beginning with, just looking at how our lineups or our predictions for the division were, I mean, for the AFC East, we all had the same first and last. Like, we all had New England and Miami, but obviously, and then different second. Three of us had the same one. I was the only one who went different. And then obviously for the West, we all four had the same lineup. Mm-hmm. So now that we're actually getting into divisions where we've got different lineups again, it's pretty good.
Yeah, we don't, we're going to remember this stuff. This isn't just going to be deleted and forgotten. We'll bring this we'll bring this back up at the end of the season, see how each of us did with these predictions. And I can't wait for the one next week. That's going to be fun with talking about the AFC South, but we'll move on to the current events section. The XFL here, they revealed their names and logos. I don't know what's going on with this website here. It's just okay, here it is. It went away. But now it's back.
Your computer hates you right now.
Yeah,
Come on, ESPN.
Yeah, so I mean, nothing crazy or anything. It's just the team names and logos were released today. I thought these were an interesting group of names because there's some pretty weird things like Battlehawks and stuff, and then there's the team that 1 in every 3 colleges mascots are the Wildcats. It is kind of weird seeing that, but it's definitely some cool things here. Unlike Eric, I know he had that XFL is going to be trash tweet. I'm actually excited for it because in my opinion, more football is never a bad thing, and this is going to be kind of in the off season of the NFL is when this league is going to run. So, and then also I do live in Tampa Bay, so actually it's just called Tampa. There's no actual geographic Tampa Bay name, so that's always something that's kind of bothered me. There is no Tampa Bay. It's just called it's the city of Tampa, but they always put the Bay in there. So I'm going to be excited for the Vipers. With the AAF, there was an Orlando team, but I don't know. I just never really followed. I never really followed the AAF that much. But with the Vipers, I'll watch the draft. I'll see what it's all about. I'm optimistic. I'm for it. So.
Well, and unlike these two guys, I don't have a team anywhere near me because at least Eric, living in Texas, has a choice between the Renegades and the Roughnecks. But I mean, I guess if I was talking about this earlier, I guess I'll adopt the DC Defenders as my team just because I think they're geographically the closest to me, so closer than the Vipers. So I guess I'll go with the DC Defenders, and who knows, maybe I was talking to these guys before the podcast about Landry Jones being the first signing by the XFL, former Steelers backup. So who knows, maybe
for team he goes to.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I'll have to root for wherever Landry Jones goes. So, yeah. I mean, I'm excited. I'm excited for the different rule changes because obviously the AAF was basically for the most part the same as the NFL. I mean, they had the kickoff difference, and they had there was no extra point. It was just all 2-point conversions. But the XFL actually has a lot of different rule changes that are going to come into play. So it's going to be, if nothing else, it'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah, I guess for me, it's the closest team to me is the Houston Roughnecks, but it kind of sucks because out of the 8 team names, I kind of hate that one the most, I guess.
It's like Rednecks.
It's kind of funny. It almost looks like an Oilers logo in a way.
It kind of does. Like, so, and since Susan's a Cowboys fan in Dallas, maybe I should just be a Dallas Renegades fan. I don't know. I'm still torn.
Join the Vipers, man. Join the Vipers.
No way, bro. I got to pick one of my Texas teams. I will
say, going by the logos, I like the Guardians. I think the best, or Dragons. Yeah.
Yeah, the Dragons logo is pretty good. I actually kind of like the DC Defenders logo. Maybe I'll join Connor and that. I don't know. I guess like the LA Wildcats and the Vipers are probably my least favorite of the logos. But
yeah,
in terms of the names, the Roughneck name, that sounds so weird. I don't know. That geographically they're the closest, so I don't know. I'll have to figure this out.
Well, you got some time before the season starts.
It's not like they're starting tomorrow or anything. So I got time.
So that was news today, and then Connor brought this story to my attention, so I'll let him discuss what happened here with this.
Yeah, so looks like Brandon Copeland from the New York Jets has been suspended for 4 games for PEDs. Apparently, I read I guess it was an Instagram post. I thought it was a tweet, but it says here it was an Instagram post. He said that, you kind of hear this all the time where it's like, oh, I took such and such, and I had no idea there was a banned substance in it, and blah, 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 blah. So, I mean, it's kind of hard to tell who's telling the truth and who's lying, but according to him, he had no idea he was taking it. So, I don't know. But, I mean, this is just kind of going back for me, just kind of adding on to why I think the Jets are going to finish 3rd instead of 2nd in the AFC East, just because all these things keep coming out, stuff happening to the Jets. I mean, first with Catanzaro and now with Brandon Copeland getting suspended for 4 games. Things are not looking on the bright side, but I mean, it keeps going on with these players that are, there's been a lot of players that have been getting suspended for banned substances, and it's a lot of, it's not about, it's not in the sense where these players are getting banned and they're knowingly, or at least admitting that they're knowingly taking banned substances. There's been a lot of this ban injury. I don't know how you should move forward with this. If maybe they should do a little bit more investigating on this matter. I don't know, but I mean, obviously, since Copeland said that everybody's going to appeal the suspension. I don't think I've heard a single NFL player that's been suspended that hasn't appealed it.
Exactly.
So,
bro, you did.
You always have to mention that. Oh, they're always like, oh, well, they're going to appeal the suspension. Well, duh. Who wouldn't? Who wants to be suspended? So, Anyway, that's another interesting story coming out there about something happening to the Jets.
And it's funny too. He hinted that he would appeal. Like, why not just go on and say that I'm appealing it? Like, oh, I might. Like, that's not gonna change
maybe.
anything. Oh man. All right.
Yep. And then to our weekly NASCAR update here. Then Eric. I guess didn't make a DraftKings lineup. I didn't ask him before, but I'm guessing he did.
I haven't done one in like a month, or it wouldn't be like.
Yeah.
The last podcast I was in was like at least 2 or 3 weeks ago. It's been since I've done one. I just haven't had time to pay attention to it.
But yeah, so the ever famous night race at Bristol Motor Speedway, won by Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin seems to be getting hot as of late. He's won this is the first race he's won, but he's had a lot of top 5 and top 10s recently. Another shout out. He never tweeted back at me when I tweeted at him, but Matt DiBenedetto finishing second in the race. I mean, I feel bad for him because he actually led the most laps in the race. And I mentioned in the last episode, at this point now there's only 2 races left before the playoffs. And DiBenedetto's just been on this tear as of late. I mean, top 10s, top 5s, all in the last few races. But unfortunately for him, since he had such a slow start to the season, the only way that he's going to make the playoffs now is if he wins a race. And to become so close to winning the race, I mean, I saw the last couple of laps, and he was hunting down Denny Hamlin. He was trying to get around him, but he just couldn't. So to be that close and for it to slip out of your grasp has got to be agonizing. And then obviously the other names that are at the top, Keselowski, Kyle Busch, you see them at the top all the time. Clint Boyer being up in 7th is good for him. He's kind of fallen out of the playoffs right now. He's 1 place out. Same for Jimmy. Jimmy Johnson had another poor outing, so it's possible that the 7-time champ could end up missing the playoffs this year because he finished in I think it was 19th. I thought it was 20th, but he finished 19th, and he's going to have a really good showing in the last 2 races if he wants to make it. So, I mean, and I think it would be the first time that Jimmy Johnson has missed the chase in his career since they came up with the chase. It'd be the first time he's ever missed it. So, yeah, that's the weekly NASCAR update coming out.
So that concludes the current events section of the show. But like you said at the beginning, now Eric is going to do the drawings for our Clutch Crew Sports Fantasy League. So he's going to get his video on whenever he's ready. Here's some shuffling going around.
It's actually not me. I don't know. Connor, are you doing something?
No.
That wasn't me, so I don't know what.
Okay, so
There's a ghost.
Okay, well, there's a movie about this. So some ghost is going to jump out my screen and kill me. I don't.
Yeah, there's a movie where all these people are on a Skype call and there's something going on.
Oh God.
I think it's called Unfriended or something. I don't know.
Yeah, Unfriended.
It was an interesting film, but that's my. Well, I don't know if I'd really recommend it. But I guess that movie discussion episode, but. Yeah, and I guess this is actually going to be my first time on camera with the podcast. So for anybody,
you can see Eric's face.
If you're listening to this and you don't already know me, you'll get to see what I look like. So I'm sorry about that. All right, here we go. Okay, right, here I am. My lighting's not the greatest, so. It's weird because I can see myself on my screen, but then I can also see myself on Zach's screen. So this is really weird. Okay, so first I've got myself, Connor, Nate, and Zach all in one hat. So we're going to draw to see which 2 podcasters go in which division. So
Eric and I already have a name for our division if we end up in the same division. So.
Share the name, Connor, if me and you end up being in the same division together.
So if Eric and I get to be the same division, the division's going to be called the Ranting Current Events.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so Division 1 has, let's see if I can get this right on the camera.
I can't really see it.
See that. My lighting's not very good. Nate.
Oh, Nate.
Nate, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, this is going to be weird. Okay. Should this one be? I guess this one would be the first one for Division 2, so we make it more interesting, I guess.
Oh, okay. So Nate's in Division 1, then Division 2.
Okay, so Division 2 is me. I don't know if you can see.
I can't see it, but we trust you. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, okay. There it is. Yeah,
there we go.
Yep.
So joining Nate in Division 1.
Better be Zach.
Someone write this down.
All
Oh, too bad, man. I keep getting it off the camera. I'm
So it's
disoriented.
Nate and Connor.
Yes.
Oh man, we don't get our division name. Boo.
Yeah, well, I'll just have to think of something else. And so Zach, you're going to be with me then.
Yep.
That's just to prove that I didn't put in
Rig the lottery.
put in a duplicate name. I don't know. It takes the camera a second to.
There we go, right there. Yep.
Okay, so now. Oh crap! I just turned on my PlayStation. I was like, "What was that?" Okay, I got everybody else.
Eric's ready to play 2K.
Yeah, we're playing 2K after this, guys. Okay. So Division 1. I need to separate these so I don't. I hope maybe y'all write them down.
I'm writing it down. Yeah, I'm writing it down.
Connor, and then me and Zach. Okay, so joining Nate and Connor will be my brother-in-law, Paul. Shout out to you, Paul. Thanks for playing with us. So you're going to be in Division 1.
Was he the one that joined just on the DraftKings before?
No, that's Robert, but he's in this league
Robert,
too.
that's right. Yeah, that's right. I can't remember. I couldn't remember who it was.
Robert's name. By the way, look at this beautiful hat. Look at that.
It is. Yeah, I like it.
I was going to mention that, but I thought one of you two was going to do it.
And speaking of Robert, he will be joining myself and Zach over in Division 2. Which we will get named. So shout out to you, Robert. Thanks for playing with us. All right, let's see. I'm really hopeful I get Alan in my division. Me and Alan have a big rivalry. Okay, so... Oh, no, he's not going to be. I just picked him. Alan, you're going to Division 1, brother. But we'll still play each other.
Yeah, everybody plays each other once.
But they'll still play each other at least once, so... All right. And then joining Division 2 with myself and Zach and Robert. Oh, looks like I'm looking at it. Okay. Is one of my former students' dads who I'm friends with, Brandon, he played with us last year. Zach, you'll remember him.
Yeah.
Brandon made it to the finals last year, and if Todd Gurley hadn't gotten hurt, he could have been the winner. So, so Brandon is very good at fantasy football. So rounding out Division 1, my friend from work, who I no longer work with, sadly, Ryan, a.k.a. Red. So, Red, welcome back to the league. This is his second year in the league with us. And so then Zach might be happy about this, and Zach knows him. That means Mark, who we've played Madden with, will be in our division. So,
Mark, you're going down.
And the trash talking begins. I'm going to take myself off camera now.
I'm still salty that Eric and I didn't get the division name.
Yeah, we're not going to be the ranting current Avengers, but that's okay. That just means we just have to be creative and come up with something else.
Yeah, it's going to be
figure it out. So we'll figure out what our league names are going to be, and as Zach and Connor mentioned earlier, we will record the draft live, so August 31st. So if you want to, tune in and see who we pick and see who you think's going to do well, who you think won't do well, you can definitely join us for that. So that'll be exciting.
Excited. Yeah,
I'm ready for it.
Like I said before, we always do a family league with our family, but I've joined Eric and his friends league for the past couple of years, and this is the most excited I've been for this league. It's always kind of been like an afterthought, the other league, where another league to control, but my main focus was the family league. My main focus will still be the family league, but this is going to be really fun, and I'm excited for it. So, so with that being said, guys, this will be the end of the podcast episode. Stay tuned for next week. Like, we've got the Jags division talk AFC South. I guess not just the Jags. We got the Texans, the Titans, the Colts too.
I guess
There
we'll
are
talk
other
about the other teams too. I do know some Texans fans, obviously living near here, so I'm gonna have to get them to tune into this and see what they think.
Might get a couple of YouTube dislikes. But
we've gotten a random one here and there. I don't know who's been doing that, but
it's probably someone that didn't like our rankings.
Sorry that you didn't like our topics, I guess.
Or they're just a fan of a team that we put in fourth and they're salty. That could be the case.
Oh yeah, that's
some
possibility.
Some Cincy fan on this episode, some Miami fan on the East episode, probably.
If the Cincy fan listens to this episode, you're gonna listen for sure. All right, but yeah. So thank you guys for listening. Stay tuned for next week. We got that in the draft coming up. This is a pretty fun show. Eric back in the mix here. He didn't disappear.
I didn't die.
It's all good.
So thanks everybody for listening and take care.
See ya.
Peace.